Johnnie Warner will be 95 in April the 9th of this year, and born just outside of Brunson, Texas, about 30 miles north of Jasper.
Johnny, tell me a little bit about your upbringing in Bronson, Texas.
To understand that, you would have to picture a family living almost in prehistoric times, in that we had no electricity. We grew almost all of the food that we ate, and we made do with what we had. Living in a house that my granddad and grandmother had built right after the Civil War, around 1870.
My goodness. Now, Johnny, tell me, I want to talk to you about your service in World War II.
The rank of the service was the United States Army Air Corps, and at that time the draft was being used, and when you reached 18 years of age, you registered for the draft. So in April of 1941, I turned 18. I was in Beaumont at that time, working, and I registered for the draft. And the plant, the machine shop where I was working, was doing some defense plant contract, and I had a little bit of slack cut, and so it wasn't until January of '43 that my name came up and I was drafted in January 1943. Well, the first thing is from the induction center, the next place is your basic training, and that was Keesler Field, Mississippi. Keesler Field at that point had about 75,000 men on it, and they did not have enough barracks for everybody, and they had a tent city that a bunch of the servicemen were living in a tent city. From basic training, the order at that time was to get sent to a tech school of some type. So I was sent to aircraft mechanic school in New Orleans, Delgado Trade School. It was a civilian school. It had been taken over by the military, and they were teaching aircraft mechanics. So that's where I was sent for my time in the aircraft mechanic school. And from that, the next step then was before they put you in the pipeline to get into the overseas service, you had to go through an aerogunnery school. So the next step was to Fort Myers, Florida for aerogunnery, to go through the aerogunnery school. I was discharged in February 1946, so that would have been 37 months. Meanwhile, during that time, in basic training, I got married in June of 1943. Been dating this Christian young lady for a couple of years, and we had decided to be married, but I did not want to leave a war widow. So wait till I'm back and we'll be married. But I'm in New Orleans for 6 months. She got on a train and came to New Orleans, and we got married June of 1943, and it lasted 53 years. My wife had gone to school and graduated here in Nederland, and while I'm awaiting my discharge points to get out of the military, she was at her parents' here in Nederland. So as soon as I'm out of the military, I came and found a job. By this time I had a wife and baby, and I need to make a living for them. So at that point, I was able to get a job at Nature's Butane Products Company. And that's how I came to be in Nederland. Way to make a living.
Well, Johnny, tell me about your Christian walk. How did you become a Christian?
When you grow up in a home that has absolutely no connection with church, yet your home is one of the highest moral organizations you could count on. My mother and dad, they set a pattern in front of us that you wouldn't find any better in any church-going family. So we got grown with a high pattern, high moral life without having any church connection. In the military, you're around these men who wouldn't miss going to church. But after church, they'd do anything, say anything comes to their mind. And I thought, if it means no more than that, what is there to it? So when I'm out of the service with a wife and baby, no church connection, but my wife is a Christian, and as our children came along, she started taking the children to First Baptist. But we had a son born in 1947, so they gave us 2 children, and she's taken them to church. She's also active in WMU, and she got that women's missionary circle. They took me on as a project, and when that happens, you just will give up. But I had not given up yet. The preacher would drive to the house to come visit with me, and when I'd see him drive up, I went out the back door to the barn. I didn't want to see him. No. And finally, our 3rd child was born in December 1950, full-term baby. No indication of problem at all before birth. Baby weighed 8 pounds, a little boy. But he had a defect, a congenital defect. His heart plumbing was not quite right. So the baby only lived 4 days, and that mashed me in the mud bad. Well, that got me started reading the Bible. It wasn't long I came up to 2 Samuel 12, where David and Bathsheba had this little boy that was born, conceived out of wedlock. The baby is about to die, and David is in sackcloth and ashes. And he got word that the baby had died, so he cleaned himself up, he called for food, and he went and worshiped. His servant said, "King, what is this? The baby is dead, and you've come out of mourning." David said, "The child can't come back to me, but I can go where the child is." That grabbed a hold of my attention then. I started reading in earnest, and it wasn't long till I'm up to John 3:16, where God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, and so on. And it wasn't long I saw what I needed to do. So in April of 1951, in the little First Baptist building there on Boston, I made my profession of faith. And that preacher that had been coming to see me for quite some time, and I was dodging him, he is the one that baptized me, Ray McCullum. He's the one that had the vision to buy this property here when it was somewhat in the country and full of weeds. Ray McCullum was the one that led our small congregation to buy this property here, where this had the vision that these buildings that we have now would one day be here and serving the community.
And you were a part of that, Johnny. You're one of the last ones left.
I think there's 2 of us. Roy Daniel and I think, are the only 2 men left who drove nails in Unit A, where the nursery is. But we did a lot of volunteer labor building the first unit.
Johnny, you shared a story with me earlier about the stolen plumb bob. Would you mind relating that story about the stolen plumb bob and how it came to rest on the top of the steeple here at First Baptist?
That plumb bob on top of our steeple is made out of stainless steel. It's 18 inches in diameter, 4 feet long, and it's mounted on a stainless steel rod with the point of it going up. And while this building was being built, we had a member who worked for the Gulf refinery. He was a machinist. And he decided that he would make that plumb bob while he was at work on Gulf time out of Gulf material. And he did. And he brought it and gave it to our church. I was not on that building committee, but a man, my neighbor who was on it, told me this happened. And the chairman of that committee was Dalton Moore. Dalton Moore was a school principal. He doesn't know anything about government jobs. So the next committee meeting after the plumb bob was delivered, Brother Moore suggested that we send a thank you note to the Gulf refinery. And of course, these refinery men, they know about government jobs. They said, "Oh, Brother Moore, you do that, you'll get him fired in a hurry." So that's how we got it. On that bob is etched 133rd Psalm, the first verse. It says, "How good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell in unity."
Amen. That's an important reminder for all of us.
Absolutely.
Again, underneath that plumb bob. Well, Johnny, how long have you been a Sunday school teacher here at First Baptist Church?
Well, about over 60 years, I suppose. I'm coming up 95, and I was 28 when I was converted. And I suppose I worked shift work as long as I was working, and I never did take a full-time class because your shift worker cannot do anything with regularity. And so I substitute taught for a long time. And then when I retired in December of '82, I took the class, and I had the co-ed class in Adult 1 for a lot of years. Don't wait any longer to put your trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not to your own understanding. The sooner you keep your antennas up, look at the evidence we have in the natural world of the existence of God in His operation. Grab onto that hand that says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." Grab onto it and hold on to it for the rest of your life. I'm convinced that the future, not only of our community, but the future of our state and our nation and our world, lies in our dependence on the leadership of the Creator God that made the universe and is still in control of it. It didn't change yesterday, it doesn't change today, He won't change tomorrow. He is faithful, and He administers justice in the right manner.